A very good afternoon to all of you, and I apologize for not being with you in person, but my colleague Joshua Wycliffe is there to tell you about all that we are doing. The G20 is an amazingly important opportunity for us and for the world. It is a platform for global leaders to discuss what is it that they do, and that's amazingly important, and more importantly also on how they will globally cooperate in order to reach those goals. In our area, which is renewable energy in general and solar energy in particular, we are looking at re-emphasizing the global commitment to renewable energy and focusing on the ways in which this can be enhanced. That means policies which help in bringing in more renewables into the grid. Policies that help in creating innovation and new technologies which can come into the market and be useful to you and me as consumers, and to provide consumers with lower cost electricity as and when possible. It is about discussing the international cooperation that can occur to enable a just transition towards non-fossil fuel future, but one in which equally every citizen gets the amount of energy that they need. In other words, appropriate energy and adequate energy. At the International Solar Alliance, we are working with the G20 on a number of issues. The most important, I guess, is on a global commitment to promote rural energy access through solar. In particular, places where the grid is not there, we are looking at how we can use solar mini grids, because that is a cheaper option than either extending the grid to the point of usage or using diesel for providing the electricity that is needed. So the first area where we want the G20 to recognize is that solar mini grids are the most effective way for rural electrification. The second area that we are working with the G20 is on recognizing hydrogen as the energy source of the future, particularly in areas where fuels are needed. Now, every country is already doing a lot in terms of hydrogen. We need a place where we can bring it all together, and therefore creating a virtual center of excellence which promotes the use of hydrogen, and particularly the production of green hydrogen, is what we at the ISA seek to enable consensus amongst all the G20 countries in order to move ahead on that task. The third area where we are focusing discussion is on creating a geographical diversification of the supply chain, because as we look to 3 to 10 times more demand for solar products in the developing countries and the developed countries, we will need that solar modules are supplied across the world and not just in localized pockets, which means that how would we encourage developing countries, countries in Africa, countries in Latin America, countries in Asia and the Pacific, to start off manufacturing solar panels, possibly importing solar cells, but then producing solar modules. And recognition of this would be useful as we move ahead. We are working on the technical side of this issue within the Clean Energy Ministerial. The Clean Energy Ministerial meeting is happening together with the G20 ministerial meeting. They are, I think, one day. I think the CM meeting is on the 21st of July, and the G20 ministers meeting is on the 22nd of July, both in Goa. Now, what will all of this do? All of this will push decarbonization. It will push more and more people having access to energy, clean electricity, clean energy, than they have ever had before. You see, what solar does is it enables communities which have never had electricity to have it at an affordable price now. The huge price declines that we are seeing in solar electricity as well as in storage. In storage, for example, between 2010 and 2020, we have had an 80% decline in prices. And now we are looking at the final 20% before cost effectiveness of solar plus storage is achieved. All of this together will make a huge difference. Now, we looked at this global investment that is occurring in solar and found that in 2021, it was something of the order of about $200 billion. In 2022, it was $250 billion. This year, it is expected to exceed $350 billion. The problem is that a very small proportion of it, 3 to 5%, goes to all of Africa. This is not only true of Africa, it is true of all developing countries. The vast amount, I think nearly more than 3/4 of the amount has gone to the OECD countries and China. Why is it that monies are not, investment monies are not flowing into the developing world? We talked to a very large number of financiers, maybe 100 of them, and understood that the major challenge is, number one, the discomfort that they have about payment guarantees, that whether they will receive the payment, whether they'll receive it on time. And the second is about the pipeline of projects. Who will be there to create the projects that can then be financed? With this in mind, the International Solar Alliance has created the solar facility, first for Africa, and then we will extend it to Asia and Latin America. And the goal here is that there is a payment guarantee mechanism that the investors can purchase their way into. And what this will do is that if they don't get paid on time, it will provide a payment guarantee. The second challenge is being met through what is known as the SolarX Startup Challenge. And that identifies startups in Africa, and then later on, as I said, in Africa, later on in Asia and Latin America, to identify startups in the area of solar energy. Why? Because number one, we want to identify them. We are looking at identifying 20 startups, and we hope that by July, the 20 startups in Africa would be identified. Something like 180 had applied by the end of March. We will work on enabling their financial status. We will enable them to reach out for technology collaborations. We will enable their brand building. These are the people who will create the projects of tomorrow. We hope that some of these, maybe not all 20, but at least 6 or 8 of them, become the Amazons of tomorrow as far as solar energy is concerned. These kinds of initiatives would help create the environment within which solar would become available for all. And this is one of the issues that I want to emphasize, that we want to create solar for all. This implies that capacity building is necessary. We need to be able to build up certified capacity so that people who come in and do projects can hire people who are trained, who have been certified through a process as being able to either set up projects or service projects or maintain them. In other words, again, create the ecosystem that is needed. Over the years, we have seen that India has worked very, very hard in creating this ecosystem. We would like this to be enabled in a number of other countries. We are enabling this through what we call as the STAR centers, the Solar Technology and Application Research Centers. We look forward to establishing at least 10 of them by the end of next year and 50 of them by the year 2030 in different countries. And the goal is that in each country there is a core team which works on capacity building, identifying what that country needs and help build the capacity there. We are also looking at these centers possibly becoming places where solar modules can be tested, possibly places where incubation of new startups can occur. These obviously would help in creating a broad-based solar ecosystem. It would also help in creating the financial sustainability that is so important for the star centers or for any center that is established. Through all of these efforts, we are looking to create an ecosystem within which solar will grow and solar will thrive as the energy source of choice across the developing world.